So, rugs. Thoughts? I love rugs. I've said before that if I ever get a workspace separate from my bedroom, I would cover the floor entirely in rugs. Honestly, I'd probably even cover the walls in rugs if I could. Would that make me sneeze and sniffle for the whole day? Probably. But consider this. It would look really pretty. So, rugs, I approve. So when Clawlab offered to send me their Tufting Kit H1, how was I supposed to say no? I didn't know it was gonna come with the bottom mat. That's awesome. And our yarn selection. Pink. Here's the Tufting Gun H1 styrofoam. Here you go, Mika. Present for you. So I've seen Evan and Caitlin use this kit before, so I kind of know what to expect. At the same time, I kind of don't know what to expect because I've never used a Tufting kit, period. So this will be fun to figure out. Here's the canvas. The rest is the frame, I'm presuming, and I'll need instructions for that. Let's put this on time lapse. Okay, so now it is time to put it on a tabletop, and I was hoping that I could put it on that one right there, but now that I'm looking at it, I am not sure if my table is wide enough. Definitely way too small for this frame. I think this table should work. There we go. Okay, that feels good. Counterclockwise, one full turn. Okay, there we go. We're going to fully tension the fabric. I wonder how tense it's supposed to get. Like I said, I've never done this before. People do the thing where they... So setting up this frame was fairly straightforward until I got to these side clippy things. Trying to feed the fabric through them and making sure they're all held in place was a little finicky, but other than that, I think we're ready. Cleaning supplies up in the flap here. Ooh, feels so fancy and cool. So now that we have everything unboxed, we are finally ready to get tufting. But before then, of course, we have to come up with a design. I'm like super out of frame. Hi, my name is Emily, and I am an amateur rug tufter. So because it is October, which means it's basically Halloween, I decided to go with a Coraline theme. And my original plan was to make the garden that the other father made for her, because I've always wanted that garden in my own yard. If only I wasn't such a black thumb. But the problem with that is that I started mocking it up and I realized I don't really want Coraline to be staring down at me while I'm sleeping. So I pivoted the idea and I decided to go with her house instead. Because I've always wanted her entire house, minus the haunting aspect. It's just super duper cute, and it looks a little complex for a beginner like myself. The videos that I've seen of other YouTubers trying tufting for the first time, they started out with a pretty simple design. Apparently, I just decided to go balls to the walls and do something super complicated, but it just looks really cool. Okay, I want to make it. Coraline's house is a Queen Anne Victorian style house. Not that this relates to the project whatsoever. I just want you to know that I did research. And here is the much simplified design. Let me move the cursor out of the way. I thought it would be cool to do a dark brown outline for most of the house except for the top here, which I'll use white as rim light from the moonlight. The moon will be the button, of course. The little flag hanging off of Mr. Bobinski's little perch I'm gonna make out of fabric. This round window in the middle here, I thought it would be cool to use a mirror for that. And I thought it would be cool if I use felt to make a door that is openable. And one of my big inspirations for this are these Maneki Neko stickers based off of needle punch little coasters, I guess you'd call them. And I love the fact that it has little star beads. The little necklaces are made out of real beads, and I just thought that looked super cool, adds a whole new layer of textural experience to this. So for my rug, I want to do something similar. I don't have it planned out exactly what I'm going to do. I've laid out the colors I'll need. Now, the rug tufting kit did come with some yarn for me to use, which is very nice. However, as you may have noticed, it doesn't have quite all the colors I'll need. But luckily for me, I live in a household of knitters and crocheters, so I will just raid their stash. Aha! Green. Gloop. You see that peeking out over there? More yarn.
Alrighty guys, I think we've got all the yarn we need and we didn't have to spend a single cent.
So being honest for a second here, I've been procrastinating this project because I'm kind of nervous about doing it. But one thing that's really easy to do is just tracing the little sketch I made onto the canvas. So I just have a projector casting the image onto the fabric. Ooh, hello. Wait, I just realized this should be inverted because the finished side will be on the other side. Okay, I'll be right back. This is giving me flashbacks to when I drew that giant canvas full of cats. My shoulders are so sore right now. Luckily, this is just one fairly simple drawing, so it's not gonna be days of torment.
But then there was someone very keen on disrupting my work.
Sorry, but you gotta go. Bloop. So this time it is Milo disrupting me. Meow. Let me realign this again. Close enough. So here we are, the traced image, and tomorrow we can get tufting. So you can see the orange pre-marked lines are pretty crooked because of the way I pulled it, and that is why I probably should have put the image in the center, but I want to leave this area here for some practice tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be okay, it's just one little corner of it.
By the way, I am aware that the house is missing the little crawl space. Unfortunately, I did have to eliminate it because I want to get the little hill in there.
Let's do a straight line. Let's do two, just in case. Let's try a squiggle. And then I guess we should do some shapes. I'm really worried about the button, the tiny circles in there. I don't know if I'll be able to tuft that. I lost my purple Sharpie. I'm using a fairly short piece of yarn just to test it out. Here's the power button, back of the gun. Here's a dial for you to control the speed. But since I don't have a baseline for how fast this thing goes and whether I'd like it, let's just go test it on the canvas. Whoa, the yarn goes out fast. Let's see what the other side looks like. Here we are, nice layer of fuzz. Wow, this yarn is very nice and thick. There's a bit of catching in the middle and the end here. Considering this is my first time, I think it's not bad, but we definitely did not finish the line. Take two. This time I've put the yarn through the guide in the back. Power on. Look at that! Oh my gosh. That looks pretty even. Obviously there's a lot of holes in the canvas where I went past where the yarn ended. This is going pretty well.
With a new sense of confidence, I decided to try the squiggle.
Oh my god, that was bad. Let's turn down the speed a bit. Okay, trying this curve again. Oh, I turned it way slow. Okay. Oh, but look at that. Oh my gosh, that looks pretty freaking good. The slow mode, it really worked. Oh yeah, important things I also have to remember about this is I have to make sure my cats aren't on the other side when I do the tufting. I'm glad this kit doesn't do the spiky things to keep the tension of the fabric because I imagine that would be very disastrous with my cats crawling around like this. Like, look at him. Milo, what are you doing?
Armed with the power of slow-mo, I made a circle, a very hairy heart, and a triangle, making sure to always keep the gun heading upwards. I also tried to keep my speed and pressure consistent, but it took a bit of getting used to.
I figured out a life hack. If I put the vacuum cleaner behind the canvas, then the cats aren't gonna go there.
But with the shapes filled in to my satisfaction, I decided I was ready for the real deal. I keep petting this. I'm just so excited to see the whole canvas covered in yarn like this.
All right, so here's the plan. I'm going to do the outline of the house first because only the house is going to be outlined. The rest of it is going to be lineless. For the outer outline, I'm going to use this dark brown. For the inner outline, I'm going to use this roan reddish brown. And then for the top, where the moonlight's gonna be, I'm going to be using white. I did plan to use the white that came with the kit, but this one was already out here, so let's just use that up.
The first step was unraveling that white yarn, which seemed to keep Mika entertained, and once that pool of ramen noodles was prepared, I set about tufting the moonlight first, because I knew if I started with the dark brown, I would get carried away and tuft over where the moonlight is supposed to be.
Let me consult my reference picture if I did the top of the chimney as well. I sure did. There we go. All right. Alright, I think we're off to a pretty good start. And now we're going to do all the white banisters with this grayish yarn. Pretty good until the end here. I think the tufts are falling out. Yeah. Wah, wah. So I keep having these moments where the middle of a stitch doesn't adhere well, so I have to pull them out. Same over here as well. And I think that's because I don't have a spindle, so sometimes the yarn gets caught against the ball itself, and that means the yarn didn't want to go through. Gotta keep that in mind. Lower banisters are done. I did have to freehand the spacing of the railings a bit just because I realized they were too tight in the drawing. Let's see what the other side looks like. I have a feeling it's gonna be a huge carpet of complete nonsense right now. Wow, so defined. Don't worry, this will be better once we add the pink and stuff. Okay, now I think we can move on to the outer outline. Of course, when I turn off the camera, that's when I do the most successful run so far. This stair bit, I did it in one fell swoop and it looks amazing. Still slightly amorphous on the other side, but I have faith that it'll come through. Now for the inner outlines. So the inner outlines are now also done. I decided to forfeit this little section here just because I feel like it's unnecessary detail and clutter. Quick update on the other side. It's definitely starting to look like a house. It looks like a Tudor house instead of a Queen Anne house. I'm sure that'll be fixed once we fill in the rest of the house. How many times will I say house in this video? Okay, I think we can start filling in the house. Are we at that step already? Wow, I'm very hungry. In terms of the tufting experience, I think I'm definitely getting better at telling when to stop tufting, and I'm also less afraid to just go in and add a few more stitches if I mess up. Okay, it is time for the pink filling, and just to make sure I don't mess up, I'm going to mark out where the light pink is supposed to be. Pink, 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 pink. So as you just saw, I was having quite a bit of trouble with this way thinner yarn. The scissors wasn't cutting it properly. Oh, this is the sparseness I was worried about. I was worried that the thinner yarn was going to be too sparse and I would have to double tuft. But if you look from the other side, you can see that it's quite full, so I think I was worried for nothing. I think this will work. Dang bro, so I should have been worried. I've doubled up the yarn and I'm going to test it here and see if it's any good. And if it is good, I will take out whatever is falling out from down here and redo it. Alright, here we go. Okay, seems like the stitches are holding better. And it cuts better too. Wow, that's interesting. Alright, that seemed to go a lot smoother. All the stitches look like they're holding in place. Yeah, look at that. That is so much better. Oh, that is so much better. Uh-oh. I think my biggest hurdle is still that I keep accidentally stepping on the yarn and de-threading the tufting gun. Otherwise, I think I'm getting the hang of how much pressure I'm supposed to put on the canvas and the speed I'm supposed to be going in.
Another thing I had trouble with was remembering that I'm supposed to outline the areas with the fill color before I fill them in, so you get a nice clean edge. Sometimes I did it and sometimes I didn't. At the time I didn't think it was a big deal, but let me just say you can definitely tell in the final result. We are looking pretty cool. Now for the medium pink, and I really hope I have enough of this.
And I'm also double tufting that one. Alright, don't step on the yarn. So at some point, my yarn mysteriously became singular. I turned it around and realized somebody's attacking my yarn. Milo! This one is supposed to be medium pink, but when I was doing the light pink, I got a little carried away and did too much, but it's okay. I'll just make this side light pink as well. I'm not going to do the lines in the middle of the windows though, because I think that would make it look a little too cluttered. And the nice, bright, solid windows, I think will make it look extra creepy, like The Haunting of Hill House. So now I think I want to do the dark pink and then the windows. However, my camera is about to run out of battery, so... Now for the stairs. You guys want to see a little baby? Bit backlit back here, so I'm not sure how well you can see, but here's stairs, stairs, stairs. Oh, this side is a little too poofy. Hopefully once I get the background in, it'll squish it back a bit. And then I filled in the roof trim with the same yarn as the porch railings. Did I show you guys how crooked this part is? Oops. For the roof, I tried using this dark brownish gray that was eerily close to the color of my cat. What do you think, Miki? So the way I double tufted before was I spooled out 2 long pieces of yarn that are the same length and then fed them at the same time into the machine. But I think I found a better way to do it. Basically, you pull out super duper long piece of yarn, snip it, and then instead of cutting this in half or getting another piece of yarn that's the same length, I just double it up, straighten it out. So one side is the double-sided end, one side is the looped end. I just feed this into the machine. The reason I'm doing it this way instead of with 2 pieces of yarn is because I find when there's 2 separate pieces of yarn, one yarn tends to get used up faster than the other one, so I end up with just like a tiny bit of yarn at the end, and I don't like wasting that yarn. Whereas with a loop one, it'll even out by itself. I'm sure somebody out there has already figured out this hack. I like figuring these things out by myself sometimes. All right, ready to tuft.
Unfortunately, I realized the mica gray was too dark, so I loaded some lighter gray yarn into the tufting gun. And for some reason, this yarn hated being tufted. The tufts kept falling out and getting sliced in the wrong places.
No, it happened again.
But there were only so many times I could retuft one area before the fabric started losing structural integrity. So eventually I just had to move on to an even lighter gray yarn.
Alright, so here I've added in the stairs with the same light gray as this roof. Anyway, for the grass, I'm going to be using this nice thick yarn because this is a lot of space to fill and I don't want to be double tufting everything. If you don't have a spindle, make sure you have a lot of slack. That should do. Ooh, by the way, do you want to see this work in slow motion? You know what I really want to make? One of those mossy carpets. That would be so nice to have in my room. All right, now the other side. Through the camera, I can see that this is finally starting to take shape the way I was imagining it. This is the color combo we're going for the trees. Happy little tree. It really does look like moss.
So the interesting thing about Coraline is that it scarred a lot of people as kids, but for some reason I was never afraid of either the book or the movie. And I'm not saying this as a flex or anything, I am a certified scaredy cat. I don't generally gravitate towards watching horror. Maybe it has something to do with the fact I watched Saw and Final Destination way too young. But for some strange logicless reason, Coraline never scared me. It's weird, I don't have an explanation for it. But anyway, I've been trying to build up my horror tolerance and I've actually enjoyed quite a few horror media lately. Not House of Usher though, it gave me nightmares. And hopefully soon I'll be able to watch Weapons.
Oh, this is looking so freaking cool. We're making good progress so far. This has not been as labor intensive as I thought it would be. Weirdly, I feel like drawing 100 cats on that giant canvas hurt me even more than this. But that being said, I do feel something happening to my elbow. It is getting a little sore. So I'm gonna take a break. I'll be back at this either later today or tomorrow. Depends on how I feel. And if you're wondering how long it's been since I threw down the first practice tufts, this was from about 9:30 this morning and it is 5 o'clock right now. So this has all been one day's work. Alright, so I think we have time for the moon and the smoke. Oh no, I'm way off base. Should have gone slower. Let's try this again. Yeah, very luscious. I've never seen such a moldy moon before. Now these little holes are where I have the most concern about because doing this curve is already a little difficult, but such a tiny curve, I don't know about that. I wasn't recording any of that, but basically instead of doing a circle, I did 3 vertical lines, and now we're about to take a gander at what's on the other side. Well, that's something. Hopefully it'll look even more like something after I fill in the rest of the moon. Oh my gosh. That actually looks like a button. Oh my god, I'm so relieved and also pleased with how this turned out. Wow, I was not expecting it to turn out this good.
After tufting the smoke, I called it for the night, and the next day I woke bright and early to tackle the sky.
Tis the next day. Today all we have to do is fill in the sky with dark green and then seal up the back so nothing falls out. By the way, look how mangled my threader is now. This is probably why they sent me 3 of these. Making sure there's a lot of slack in the yarn. We're gonna start with outlining everything. If I did rug tufting as a job, I would develop a huge blister right here. Look at this beautiful shaggy mess.
The next step was to cut the rug out of the frame, and don't worry, I did seal up the back and fold back all the raw edges. I used hot glue for this because I don't plan to actually use this as a rug. I plan to hang it on my wall as a cute little tapestry, so the crustiness of the hot glue wasn't a problem for me.
So unfortunately, I rolled the edges a little too much because I was trying to make sure none of the backing fabric showed. So I think I'm just gonna cover it with some beads, rhinestones, whatever I can get my hands on.
But first I had to mow the rug, for which I tried using a hair clipper at first before just using a pair of scissors.
So I think I can confidently say that the hair trimmers weren't really meant for rug making. Who'd have thunk? I hated this thick green yarn and I hated this gray yarn for some reason. It just started mangling it. But anyway, now it's finally time for the beading and bedazzling.
So I dug out my bead stash and just began rummaging through. I was looking for beads that would kind of blend in but also add some sparkle. I also wanted to add stars in the sky and stones on the steps. For funsies, I also decided to add these beaded insects that I'm pretty sure my sister made because there sure are a lot of insects in this movie. When I was happy with the placement, I just started sewing.
The stars are all sewn in. And I was going to use some of these black buttons as accents on the roof, but I think that would take away from the tuft ruggedness, and I wanted to preserve that.
For the windows, I glued down some acrylic mirrors, lined them with a sparkly garland, and topped it off with a flower sequin. I pulled out my new coping saw for this, and I felt unstoppable. Imagine all the shapes I could cut. And then it was time for the door, which consisted of cardboard, yellow felt, brown felt, and some embroidering. For the window, I sewed on a little button, because of course, and added some gold seed beads for the knob. Then I glued and sewed the whole contraption together and simply stuck it down in the hole I left for it. And lastly, I made Mr. Bobinski's flag out of crimson felt, sewed yet another button on it, and glued it in place. And then we were in the finishing touches. I added some hangers, a green tassel along the bottom, and the backing fabric. Since this isn't going to be used as a rug, I didn't really need to use the non-slip backing, but I just wanted to feel like I actually made a rug. It just ties the whole thing together, even though nobody else is really going to see it. And finally, we are ready for the final reveal.
Behold my rug. It's so fuzzy and nice to touch. And I really love the addition of the tassels. I think that really pulls everything together. Makes it look like a nice tapestry. I did have to glue a wooden rod on top just to keep it from flopping and folding in on itself. And I really love how it fills up this area of my room, because previously this was blank, and contrasted to my very decorated wall, it just looked really empty here. My cluttercore dreams are coming along. I'm not 100% happy with everything, which makes sense given that this is my first time rug tufting. I think I should have used a different yarn for the outlines. The thicker yarn does fill up an area faster, but I don't like how rough it is to look at and to touch. If you touch this one, which is the really thick yarn, compared to the sky, which is the double tufted thin yarn, this feels like a real rug. This feels way better. It's either that or I should have just not done an outline to begin with, but I wasn't sure if the pinks would differentiate themselves enough for it to work without an outline, which is why I did it. I love the little door. There's nothing in it yet because I wasn't sure if I wanted to make a cat or maybe Coraline herself, but in the meantime, it's just there, open, inviting, haunting. I added the little triangular bead down here for her little looking glass. I'm just really happy that for my first time that I got a nice looking project that I can hang up in my room.
And I am just cutting in here to say, if you too want to try out the Tufting Cut H1, you can use the affiliate link in my description and pinned comment below and use my code to get 19% off any purchase. As a newbie to the craft, I found everything super beginner friendly, and it's just super fun to have a rug that I made with my own grubby hands. Once again, link below, 19% off. Go forth and create your own rug.
And I'll see you guys in the next video where I'll presumably be making my Halloween costume. Bye!